What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for listening. I wanted to put this in the top of the show. Make sure you subscribe on Patreon, patreon.com/Brennan Tassif. Check out the merch store at brennantcomedy.com to get your ex-drinking buddy merch. Subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. As always, we're coming to you live from Gotham Production Studios, and I hope you enjoy the episode.
Grab me a beer and grab me a coke. We about to sit for an hour, bullshit and tell jokes. And please don't mix it up, cause he done sobered up. Brennan T Comedy on your social media feeds. And Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. I am your host, Brennan Tassif. If you're new to the program, quick rundown of the show. I used to be everyone's favorite drinking buddy. It was my favorite thing to do, hang out with friends, get drunk, do drugs, get in all sorts of trouble, and then reminisce about those crazy stories. I am sober now, but it's still one of my favorite things to do, hang out with somebody and reminisce about the crazy old days. Most weeks I will be joined by a guest. This week is no exception. All the way from New York City, Jon Weisbrot.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
I saw you mouthing it, worried I was going to say it wrong.
A little bit.
You went,
Yeah. I feel like everyone has gotten it wrong. And I taught elementary school. Yeah. And those kids, not even close.
Well, because it's not spelled the exact same way.
No, it's spelled so in a difficult way.
Yes.
I remember one kid calling me like Wise Brown, and I'm just like, good enough.
Yeah, we're close. Well, we were talking about it before, but I get that a lot. Brandon, Brian, Brendan. I'm like, yeah, it's
Braden.
Yeah, it's fine. It's close enough. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Of course.
Jon. Jon is a musician, for those of you listening. You've never been on before, so we'll get a little backstory from you, how you got into music, everything like that. But you now currently live in New York City. We just went and saw an awesome show you had at Dumbo House. Pinkies up, very swanky.
A little fancy. Thank you for coming. You dressed perfectly.
Yes.
You had the swankiness.
You said dark jeans, but then I wore a blazer too. I was trying to I
was going to do the exact same thing. And then
you wore like a regular jacket.
Yeah, kind of.
And I was like, what the fuck are you doing?
I totally backed out. And then when I saw it, I looked at the blazer. I was like, it's a little big. And then I saw you in it and I went, oh, fuck.
Should have worn the blazer.
It's always the second too late.
Yeah. Before we get too far into any kind of stories or anything like that, plug everything up front. Your social media, the band social media, which is Jon and The Projectors. Let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, so we're on TikTok and Instagram at Jon and The Projectors. That's Jon spelled Jon. So JONANDTHE Projectors. My Instagram is Jon Weisbrot Music. WEISBROT.
Yep.
And we have a show.
This will come out in 2 weeks.
Okay, well,
we had a show.
We just had a great show at New Blue on the 13th.
Hell yeah!
Oh, it was sick. It was crazy. And we're booking some December shows. And we're gonna have some music out soon. So follow along for that.
I wanted to ask you because you've been doing music most of your life.
Yeah.
Because when I was talking to my girlfriend, Tracy, her brother, Jeff, huge fan. Shout out, Jeff.
Jeff.
He was telling me how you played music at Ohio State. Because I was like, oh, have you ever performed in front of like a big crowd before? And Jeff was like, you have no idea. Because you did a saxophone solo, if I'm not mistaken, in front of the entire Horseshoe.
Yeah, Jeff.
There's 110,000 people.
Oh, yeah. Jeff and my father will bring it up. Like anywhere, like we'll be at
anybody who will listen.
We'll be at a funeral, and he'll be like, "Have you seen this video from 5 years ago?" And it was insane.
You went to school for music, though.
I went to school for music education, jazz studies.
Okay.
And I was never part of the marching band because they didn't have saxophones, and it's like a really big time commitment. I wanted to gig and stuff.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, I knew one of my professors wrote shows for the marching band, and
when you say write show, because I have a lot of comics on, some actors and stuff. But I've had musicians on, but I don't think I've ever had a classically trained musician on. So when you say write shows, you mean the professor would write the music for the halftime show?
He wrote and arranged the entire music, and then someone else would arrange, the formations and their movements.
Okay.
And he wrote a specific, 100 years of jazz show. And he retired, and he called me, and he was like, hey, what are you doing next week?
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was like that. I was expecting oh, nice, another corporate gig. And he was like, you want to do a solo with the marching band?
Was this while you were still at Ohio State?
This was my senior year. Yeah.
Okay.
And it was...
So he wrote all this, did all this work, and then retired, and then the next year when they're putting the show together, he was like, hey, do you want to perform in this?
Yeah, he's like, this show calls for solos, and not just like, there's the classic dotting the I. There's a tuba player, sousaphone player that's dancing around instead of on the field. I know, but instead of that, it was on a stage.
Yeah,
and they were like, wear a suit because it's jazz, and I got to rip a improvised solo in front of 110,000 people.
That's awesome.
And they lost that game. It was the one where Baker Mayfield plunged the flag. But
yeah, because we talked about this because then just a few weeks ago in the NFL, Nick Bosa played against Baker Mayfield. Nick Bosa, famously of Ohio State, and sacked Baker Mayfield pretty bad, and then went to the middle of the field, and because Baker Mayfield's known because he waved the flag and then stabbed it right in the middle of the Ohio State. So Nick Bosa in the NFL waved like an imaginary flag and then stabbed it right in the middle of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers field to kind of get him back.
That's payback.
Never forget, as they say.
Yeah,
it's 9/11 and then getting beaten in college football, I think, are the two things.
That was really the most important things for that phrase. It was.
But you were at that game. You performed at halftime.
I performed at halftime, and then I don't know if they were selling drinks or we brought drinks, but we were not sober for the rest of the game.
Really?
Oh, because we were celebrating.
Because I know some universities have dry campuses where you can't, like Notre Dame's famous for this, like you can't drink in the stadium. Like they don't sell alcohol. Do they sell alcohol in the stadium at Ohio State?
They do. I'm trying to remember when I was sitting in the student section if they didn't in the student section. I mean, we snuck it in.
Yeah.
But we were on the field. We got to watch the game from the sidelines, which was insane, and it was.
Were you out of your
game.
Element?
Oh, it was so weird. I mean, seeing all these ESPN trucks.
Well, not only
and
that,
all
but like all these because. Like those guys
I perfectly get along. I mean, we look the same.
Yeah,
obviously. It was just.
A 5'8" Jewish man.
5'7". I'm not lying.
Okay.
I'm not lying.
You're like, hey guys.
Hey, even we play the session before.
You see Chase Young, 6'6", 290 pounds. He's like, what the fuck are you doing out here?
Like, hey Chase, how you doing? Yeah, there's a session before the game called the Skull Session where we get pumped up and they do a version of the show.
Now, wait, the Skull Session, when you say pumped up, like who is that for?
It's for the students.
Band? The students?
And the band performs.
So the band performs pregame.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's like a whole march thing that I wasn't a part of. I don't know. And Urban Meyer, great guy. Historical. You know what? I have to remain neutral because he won us the national championship.
He did. I played against him when they won at University of Florida when they won the national championship. Yeah. But then when he came to coach the Jags, I was working at a restaurant called Ruth's Chris right on the water, and he would eat there all the time. And his security came in, and they were like, "There's no talking to Urban. There's no just take his order, bring him his food, and leave him alone." And I was like, "Who the fuck does this guy think he is?
Who the fuck do you think you are?"
Well, and I say that because one of my regulars at the restaurant across the river that I worked at, Morton's, was the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars and his son, like Tony Khan, who owns a bunch of stuff. He's a billionaire.
Yeah.
Sweetest guy in the world. And then this fucking football coach comes in and he's like, no one speak to him. And I'm like, one of my regulars is a billionaire. Like, who the fuck do you think you are?
They were kind of like that in the session too.
Yeah.
Because he was there. He was the one where I kind of immediately was like, I'm out of my element because he's just really tall. And some of us are kind of like, should we say something? The rest of the band, they've done it. They're
used to it.
But they were like,
but this is your first time doing it because you're not a part of the band.
First time doing it, and there were 4 or 5 of us that were these featured soloists. So we kind of were like, okay, we're sitting around, we're waiting for our cue. But then besides that, we're just hanging out.
Yeah.
So we're like, should we say hi to Irvin?
Say hi to
and people were like, don't fucking even.
Yeah,
don't even go near him. He was tall as fuck.
Yeah, to me, he's not that tall. But
to me, I mean, everyone's so tall.
You're like, wow. I want to talk about that. So, because we were talking about going to Ohio State for music and for jazz. How did you get into music at all?
Wow.
I ask my guests, because normally my guests are comics. And comedy is a niche thing. And it's a very niche thing. So everyone always has a story about I was introduced to it through this. Music obviously is much broader. You do a specific kind of music. Listening to your band and hearing some of your what's the word I'm looking for?
Videos?
No, your
songs.
Your music.
Yeah, originals.
Your originals,
Yeah.
thank you. Listening to some of your originals, it's got a jazz vibe to it.
Definitely has a tinge of jazz.
yeah.
That's where we're all trained.
Yeah, so jazz is a niche thing when it comes to music. You guys aren't out there like doing pop punk or anything like that. So first of all, how did you find out that you were musically inclined? And second of all, how did you pick jazz?
Funny enough, it's probably similar to a lot of comedian
I would assume
stories
so, yeah.
where I was always kind of performing for people at home. I was doing like imitations of family members and all of that. And the thing I was good at would be music class in elementary school, and I asked to take piano lessons, and there were classes.
So you asked. You weren't told to take piano lessons.
No, I wanted to. I mean, my parents probably would have like tried to anyways.
Yeah.
And they would take me to like, Philharmonic concerts as a little kid and all that, and Mommy and Me class and all that. But really, I would take these classical piano lessons, and I'd like playing the stuff, but then I remember being like, okay, I'm gonna like play it a little differently. I'm gonna you're gonna
change the world.
I was improvising without knowing it.
Yeah.
And my high school surprisingly had this like killer jazz ensemble.
But before you got to any of that,
oh yeah,
how old are you when you're going to these piano lessons and stuff?
Oh, like 5, 6, 7 years old.
Because you took a big jump there. You're talking about 6 and 7. You skipped a decade of music.
It's not important. No.
But that's what I wanted to ask, because everyone, when you get into high school, everyone kind of finds their thing. For me, I played football. A lot of people find sports or music or theater, and you had music because you knew that's what you were going to do. But like through elementary school and middle school, are you a part of the band? I remember my middle school had like a band that you could like do.
Yeah, we had a 4th grade band.
Okay.
And I remember she taught us, shout out to Mrs. Shewan.
Huge shout out, Mrs. Shewan.
And she taught us Smoke on the Water.
Okay.
And you got to play that using...
Yeah,
you got it.
Yeah.
You have to play it using the blues scale. And then she had this lesson after that. I was like, hey, you can play this scale however you want.
Because it's the blues, baby.
It's the blues, baby. And you can...
you said it better.
Make it...
You said it better.
Really? Okay. Yeah. Yours is pretty good. Yeah. Okay. But, yeah, I learned, like, I can just play... I can improvise and create my own thing, but in, like, a context where, like, if I change this, it's always going to work.
Yeah.
And... outside of that, I was just listening to more music. I remember accidentally seeing the movie Ray.
Okay. When you say accidentally, why?
I was just on TV. It was on like BET, and I was watching it. And I remember hearing one of the songs, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And then I ran to the piano and tried to figure it out.
Did you figure it out?
Yeah.
Ah, that's crazy.
And
I mean, it is interesting though, because like I'll hear jokes. Similarly to music, like you can hear music and be like, okay, let me figure this out. And I can do, like most comics, we can do a lot of that with jokes. Like,
and you could do that a lot with like cadence.
Yeah, well, like something
delivery.
will happen and I'll go, okay, that if I just said that, it's not funny, but I can make this funny.
Yes.
So I'm sure it's similar with music where you hear something, you go, how did they get there? And you figure it out.
And you go, oh my God, and then you kind of, in a way, you're like, that's simpler than I thought.
Yeah.
It sounds complicated,
but it's always easy.
But you're like, oh, it's not that bad.
You're like, I've done this a million times.
And then you're like, oh, I could do this. I can put my own thing in this.
Your own spin
I can
on
make it I could, add my own lyrics, or I could.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Buffalo, New York. Go Bills.
Okay.
You're legally required. Just like the OHIO thing, you're legally required to say
go Bills.
Go Bills. I mean, I love to.
Yeah.
I'm a big Bills fan.
What are they?
Let's go Buffalo.
Yeah, that's
Let's go Buffalo. My brother's getting married. Shout out to Josh. And
huge shout out, Josh.
Huge shout out. And what's required for his wedding for the bands that they're gonna hire is like you can play whatever you want, all these good, play energetic music. You have to play Shout, and you have to do the Bills version.
Okay.
And so that's
sure every wedding band knows Shout.
Yeah. It's not
when I went to a Bills bar in Astoria with Tracy,
beautiful,
to meet some of her friends, and she is beautiful. Thank you for noticing. She's gonna like that.
She is.
But I didn't realize that was their thing, because in Jacksonville we have a lot of little like quirky things, but our big like thing that everyone knows is the Duval, and that's what we do. That's whenever we score a touchdown.
You say Duval?
Yeah, but we shout it, and it's very intimidating. It was actually voted one of the top 5 most intimidating chants at any NFL stadium.
I would talk shit about that, but you did just beat us in London.
Yeah.
So I kind of like,
we fucking smoked you guys.
Yeah, well, you were there for 2 weeks straight.
But then when we were at the Bills bar, they started doing the and I love Wedding Crashers, and that song's really big in that movie. So I was like, what do we do? Like, this is like, I'm jumping up and down, and I'm like Vince Vaughn in Wedding Crashers, and then they go, let's go Buffalo, and I was like, this is way better than Duval. Like, this is so much more fun.
They really made it their own.
Yeah,
they made
100%.
it's a song, but it is weird when they sing it on field goals too. You're like kind of like half-ass doing it.
Yeah, let's not. So I want to talk about it. You grew up in Buffalo. And then you left Buffalo to go to Ohio State.
Yeah, and I was in high school. I joined this jazz ensemble that I thought was the coolest thing ever.
Of course you did.
It seemed really cool. I remember like being the only freshman in it and just.
So you were that good as a freshman, where you were like getting into these.
No, I just had like potential, and I like really wanted to work.
Yeah.
And I think they saw that, and they're like, okay, let's give him like the shittiest part.
What part was it?
Second alto, baby.
Ugh.
Yeah. Ugh.
It's the worst.
The worst.
If I know anything about altos, second alto is the worst.
You want to be, so.
You want to be in that one chair.
You want to be one. I mean, come on.
Well, now it's Jon and The Projectors, so.
A little bit of a one.
Yeah, you are the one.
Sometimes.
How did the band, so you go to, for the listeners, I wanted to let them know how you got to New York. So you go to Ohio State.
I go to Ohio State. I'm getting my degrees. I'm in a bunch of bands. We're traveling. We're doing shows outside Ohio. And then, my degree was music education. Mm-hmm. So I was like, you know what? Let me try this. I got a job teaching elementary music
in
Columbus City Schools, and while playing with all these bands, and it was really fun, really cool.
How long did you do that? Because you said you were in Ohio for 5 years. So what did you do that for? Like
I did that for 3 years. I was in Ohio for 7 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Wow, you finished school in 4 years.
Sorry. Yeah, is that?
That's good.
Oh, thank you.
Because technically, this is a real beef I have with the education system.
Tell me.
You get full time is 12. I mean, when I was going to school, it's 12 credit hours.
Yeah.
So if you take the summer off, you need 120 credits to graduate. So 120 divided by 12 is 10 semesters, which is 5 years.
Oh.
So that, I get so pissed when people are like, because it took me longer, but that's because I failed a bunch of classes. That's beside the point. The point is, if you don't go to school for the summer and you just take the max, like the minimum / the full time, the minimum full time, which is 12 credit hours, it would take you 5 years to graduate.
Oh, for sure. And I took summer classes and music majors. You're always at 18 credits for some reason.
So that's the thing. So you could have finished in 3 years if you wanted to.
Nah, I mean, well,
3.5.
Maybe. But yeah, it was, they put on these like 0 credit classes like over and over again. And you're just spending you're spending like 5-6 hours practicing a day.
Yeah.
And
it's a lot.
It's crazy.
Well, then I'm sure you practice in your own time. So when did you decide to come to New York?
So the pandemic happened, lockdown happened.
Yeah.
And I liked living in Columbus, but I liked traveling with bands and then going back to my teaching job. That was cool. Well, teaching music remotely, like 50 kindergartners at a time.
That's got to be horrific.
Not fun. Yeah. And I always knew I wanted to live in New York, and I thought grad school was a good opportunity. So I went to NYU, and that's Jazz Performance Masters.
Okay. So a quick question, and this might be my naivete talking, but if you just perform a lot of jazz, wouldn't you be considered a master of jazz performance?
Oh, I would say most people that get the Jazz Masters aren't Jazz Masters. So it was a good way to move to New York, meet some musicians.
Does that offer you any sort of like pliability in the workforce?
No.
Like to be, but you know what I'm saying?
It gets you meeting people.
Yeah.
And like my professors are either like old legends or like people that are just doing it.
Yeah.
On the front lines.
Well, we have a guy who comes into the restaurant that I work at now, and he like played with Miles Davis, like he's like in his late 80s, early 90s.
Do you remember his name? Was he a drummer? Do you know that?
I can't remember.
If it's Al Foster.
It's not Al Foster. Oh, maybe it is Al Foster. It's a black guy.
Yeah.
Gray hair.
I mean, like old
guy.
It might be. I went to his like 80th birthday show.
Okay.
And he was like at the end, and he was amazing. One of my professors was playing with him, and at the end he came out and he's like, "I'm sorry, guys, I'm just not what I used to be." We're all like, "No, shut the fuck up. You're the best."
Yeah, he tells stories about Miles Davis, and he's like, "Well, me and Miles, we went." And I was like, "Holy shit, dude!"
one of my professors, it was one of Miles Davis's sax players.
That's awesome.
And he would be like, they made us box. To get into Miles' band, you had to box him. You had
to box Miles?
He was super into boxing. And you had to, and he's like, if you can box, you could be a part of the band.
Wow.
It was super cool.
You did stuff like that for Jon and the Projectors?
Yeah, definitely a lot of initiations.
Is there initiations?
Like, of
or were you
course.
just like, hey guys, I need bandmates?
Yeah, it's like, hey, we have a gig.
Yay!
Hey, we have a good gig.
So you moved to New York during the pandemic to get your master's. And then what, because now I met you through Jeff and Tracy, and it was interesting because we were talking about this at the Dumbo House show, but you were like, oh, no, yeah, I just do music full time now.
Yeah.
Which I was like, that's the fucking dream. Like, as comics, we're like, if we can just get to a point where we can make rent doing comedy, that's it. Life, like, we're good.
Yes.
And you were just like, casually, you're like, yeah, no, all I do is music. And I was like, what? Like, that's astounding. But how did you get there? Like, how did you start Jon and the Projectors? Did you just move to New York and you're like, I want to be in a band? Or these people you went to NYU with? Or
Well, I went and I was in this program and people just weren't gigging. I mean, part of it was lockdown. But
Yeah.
I remember playing, I had like a jazz trio. I was doing that thing. We were playing gigs.
in New York?
Yeah, we were
How did you meet them?
through the same program. We were playing some we were getting paid. We're playing some decently paid gigs. Not the best place, but
What
it was
year is this?
2021. So it was like
Okay.
oh, it's
Right
open.
after, yeah.
Great. So everyone, one of the guys was like, yeah, I don't want to do this gig. And I was like, we all made like $150. Like,
What do you, after the gig or before?
yeah,
the
like
gig?
after. He's like, I just don't want to. I don't like it there. And I was like, oh, like he's like, I'd rather just, and like, you know what? That's fine if that's
Yeah.
totally what you're going for. He's like, I'd rather just meet up at school and just play and like work with each other. And
He
I
just
was,
wants to jam.
yeah. And I was just like, oh no, I want a gig.
Yeah.
So I kind of,
Look at you putting your foot down.
well, I'd still a person I'd play with and all that, and in just a different context. But
No, but I understand that because it'd be like if I was like going to go on a run of shows and then someone I'm working with was like, actually, I just want to stay in the city and do open mics. I'd be
Yeah.
like,
You're
okay,
like,
then I'm going to
oh,
get someone
I'm-
else
I'm
because
gonna
I'm
keep
still
going.
doing these shows. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna work.
Yeah.
And a group of guys that we were all in the same improv class. We all were good jazz musicians.
That's jazz improv for those of you.
jazz improv. And we were all jazz musicians that didn't just play jazz. Like
Yeah.
my guitar player is super big into like punk, math rock sort of
Okay.
stuff, and other guys in other styles. So yeah, we just got along, and I had all these original songs. I got really into songwriting when I was in Columbus, and
Yeah, you're a musician. It's like a comic being like, for some reason, I was just writing
Really like
jokes.
writing jokes.
I don't know what happened.
well, I feel like we probably look at the same things happening, and you go, that's a bit, and I go,
Yeah.
that's a song, and
Yeah.
the song just takes forever to write, and the
yeah,
bit
that's
is
got to
like,
take way longer.
oh, it has to like really be a profound thing
yeah.
that like stays.
Well, like
through.
I've had profound things happen to me, but then the bit is like 45 seconds long.
Yeah, I mean, there's positive and negatives. Yeah, like I'll have a 4-minute song about one thing
Yeah.
I saw, but because the turnover takes so much longer.
Well, that's the other thing too. Is like, I mean, my bits mean a lot to me because they're most of the time they're stories that have happened to me, and then I try to work them into jokes. And it's like getting arrested, or when I was younger and I was suicidal, or like getting cheated on, and like I try to work these into like funny.
I have a
bits.
cheated on song. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I've got plenty of cheated on jokes.
Oh
but
yeah.
for me, it's easier. It's different. I shouldn't say easier, but it's different because I can write the joke, and then the joke is like, and it's like 45 seconds. It's like in and out, bang, bang, boom, and it's like, okay. But then the further, like, I don't know, it's weird because with a song, like, there's a bridge and there's a chorus, and you have to like really make sure it's profound. And then a lot of times people don't even listen to the words, which I guess is similar to joke writing because a lot of times in a club, people are only half paying attention.
Yeah.
So for you, like, do you write like, so say when you get cheated on, do you write like one song about it, or will you write like songs and songs and songs? I guess that's where I'm going.
Yeah,
because
I
I'll
write
write like 50 different, or not 50, I'll write like 15 different bits about something.
I'll write songs and songs and songs. Sometimes I'll have kind of premises. Like I have a list on my phone of like, yeah, I could write a song about this or about that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just come up with melodies or grooves or something, and then
Just grooving, baby.
You're kind of matching like socks. You're like, oh, this musical thing matches this theme, this story. And a lot of times I'll write a song, maybe a breakup song, and then I'll be like, yeah, I'm going to exaggerate. I'm going to make it like totally not really about this, but kind of use that moment.
Yeah.
And then the actual moment will happen in the future, and you're like, oh, I already got nice.
Cool.
This is more fun to sing now.
I wrote it now.
I wrote it.
I wanted to ask you about, so then Jon and the Projectors was born.
We were born.
And now you tour. And you actually do something, I want to bring this up to the listeners, because this is a really go get 'em, go for the gusto kind of a thing you do.
Go get 'em.
You will walk by bars in the city, and I've watched Jon do this. And if it says live music anywhere on the like front of the bar, you'll take a picture of that bar, and then you will call them or email them and be like, "Hey, I have a band. You said you do live music."
Yeah.
And how often you do that for any time you see it, right?
All the time, and
which is insane to me because I never thought, like, as someone who does comedy, you're like, yeah, you obviously reach out to comedy clubs, but 99% of the time they're like, no, like, we'll book you if we want to book you. Like, you don't have to reach out to us. Like, we know comics. You know what I mean?
That never happened. I mean, it does for like bigger venues, but for small venues in New York and restaurants, that will never happen.
Yeah.
So it's
because they just have
it, and people will come to, and they kind of let whatever band's playing bring the people.
Yeah.
It's not. And that is a benefit of comedy, is that there are people outside being like,
who just
want to
go
this
see
comedy.
Yeah. Well, and with comedy too, there's people who like love stand up, which I'm sure there's people who love music, but music is so much broader.
Yeah. And I think it's only gotten worse where I've seen gigs or I've gone up to venues and the bouncer's like, who are you here to see?
Oh, really?
And I was like, oh, I just want to know what kind of music is playing. They're like, no, which band are you here to see? Because that band's going to get a percentage of the people that were only there to see them.
Oh,
and
yeah. We call them bringers in comedy.
Yeah, it intimidates you to be like, oh, I'm not going.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to.
You can't just go out and see the music.
Yeah, so it kind of makes people not want to go out.
They're really tearing down the music.
Turn down the scene, man.
We sound like we're a couple of potheads.
Oh, yeah.
So then, okay. Because
it's a lot of emails.
Yeah, but you don't get a lot of responses.
No.
But the responses you do get, like, how did you get Soho House?
I think that was probably like a 6-month process of,
because that's a big place to play.
It's we love it. They treat us so well. It's kind of one of the.
They charge like $1,000 every 3 months to their members. I'd hope they treat.
They do treat us well, and you know, it's kind of like how most places should treat musicians.
Yeah.
And you're like,
I say the same thing with comedy.
This is what it feels like.
Yeah.
This would be amazing if this was everywhere. Basically, we played a show at Rockwood Music Hall, and we brought a ton of people. We had a good video of this like really cool moment where this weird, crazy, amazing harmonica player started soloing with us.
Yeah.
And we went back and forth. This lady DMs us on Instagram and says, hey, I work at Soho House. We'd love to book you.
Oh,
and I'm
okay.
like, great. We email back and forth. She just stops responding.
That's
we
where
keep
the 6-month
emailing.
process comes in.
And then it's like, oh, I don't work there anymore. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then I just emailed them regardless. And I kind of like every week emailed them until you say no, until you're like, we don't need anything else.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, great. Do you want to come in July? And I was like, yeah, sure. And they're like, here's the pay. And we're like, great. We're going to crush this gig. we're going to, yeah.
Yeah, because and then you ended up doing Dumbo House as a result because they're the same company.
Yes.
And now you're like, you guys do regular performances at those places.
Yeah, we've done it 2 times, and I think we're gonna be back in December, hopefully.
Look at you. They're all growing up.
Try a little thing. Make it happen.
I wanted to ask you because you do have some crazy stories on here.
Oh yeah, gig and drinking stories.
Yeah, you sent me 2 headings. You were like drinking stories, gig stories.
I did have to go. I kind of was like lame in college. I feel like I didn't have that many great drinking.
Well, I want to talk
stories.
to you about that.
Yeah.
So, when did you have your first drink? Were you still in Buffalo?
I was 18. I was in high school.
You waited like I did.
I went to a high school party, which I didn't know really were a thing. And it wasn't even a party from my high school.
So this is something interesting you just said that kind of resonates with me because I've heard this from other people. Now, my twin sister and my older sister and my older brother were incredibly popular in high school. So I knew parties were a thing because they would have parties and go to parties.
Yeah.
Now, I was a loner, so I never went, but I knew they were a thing. Now, I don't know if you say it jokingly like to throw it away, but the fact that you said I didn't even know that was a thing, were you and your group of friends, you guys weren't like partying or going out to parties or anything like that?
No, we were just kind of hanging out.
Okay.
We were just like having bonfires and like watching movies and going to the drive-in. It was pretty wholesome and not that exciting for stories.
And who were you hanging out with? The music kids, I'd assume.
Yeah, some music kids and some just friends. You know, you just meet a group of friends.
Some fucking nerds. It sounds
fucking nerds. Yeah, AP classes.
Hey, I was in IB, so which is harder than AP. But
oh shit! I didn't even know those existed.
Yeah, it's an international. It's called International Baccalaureate. It's an international program, hardest classes you can take in the world.
You win. You won. Do you want your prize?
Dick.
I'm sorry.
No, that's
but I had this beer.
So you go to this party. It's not even your high school.
Not my high school. It's another high school.
How did you find out about it?
I was just friends with them. I was friends like one person.
Okay.
That went to a different school.
And they were like,
and
hey,
it was
there's
like,
a
it's my
party.
birthday, and we're having a party, and there's gonna be alcohol. And I was like, oh, okay. And I had one beer, and I was like, whoa.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I was a lightweight, so I was just like, this is fun. Like, I wasn't drunk, but I was just like,
yeah, you're feeling it.
Yeah, I'm feeling good.
So then when you why did you decide to go to Ohio State?
It was, I was just looking at Big Ten schools. I really like the campus. And
why Big Ten school? You live in Buffalo. Go to Syracuse.
I didn't like those schools as much.
Okay. No, but this is genuine because
I wanted a big school that I could get into. I could be in a really good music program.
Okay.
But then if let's say I figure out I didn't want to.
Yeah.
That's like if I went to
you still have the opportunity.
Yeah. If I went to Juilliard or something and was like, oh, I don't want to do music.
You're fucked.
You have to fucking quit. You have to leave the school, and you wasted a crap ton of money.
Yeah.
So I went to Ohio State. It was a great saxophone professor.
This is so interesting because I have this conversation with Jeff all the time too. Jeff,
shout out Jeff
friend
again.
of the show,
part 2.
But because he went to Michigan.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you grew up in Boston. Why are you going across the country to go to Michigan?
Yeah, it was. Well, I knew I didn't want to. I just didn't want to go to New York.
So same thing. So, and Tracy opened my eyes to this because I was like, that's ridiculous. Why would you go? And she goes, Brendan, you understand the only schools worth going to in Boston are private schools. Yeah. So they're hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess I didn't think all that through. Because in Florida,
scholarships,
some of the best schools in the state, the best school in the state, one of the best schools in the country, the University of Florida, is a public school. So it's like super cheap to go to.
Yeah.
And it's a huge school. Florida State, even some of the smaller schools, UNF, FSU, UCF, USF, these are all still huge schools. So when someone says they grew up in a certain area, but then went across the country to go to college, it blows my mind because I'm like, wait, you guys didn't grow up with some of the biggest, coolest universities in the country, like on your front door?
No, I mean, UB is cool. I like UB.
What's UB?
University at Buffalo.
Ugh.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. But
what are they? The Buffaloes, right?
Yeah, like the Bulls.
Yeah. I know it's the Blue Buffalo. I remember that.
There you go. But yeah, a lot of these Big Ten schools have like a lot of out of state scholarships.
Well, and they
want to bring people in.
Ohio State had a big music program.
Yeah, they had they had a big music program in a nice.
I just know this from playing football, but their marching band's like a big deal.
Oh, those people were crazy. It was a cult. Yeah. For that week, I was like, I love the marching band. And the rest, I was like, all right, yeah, you do.
You guys are weird.
You guys are weird.
So you get to Ohio State, and so you only drank that one time in high school, or did you drink after that?
I think I only drank that one time.
Okay, so then you graduate. Boy, oh boy, here we go to college. When you show up to Ohio State, or is it like...
Oh, yeah.
Ohio State's one of the top party schools in the country.
Oh, it is.
Was it? No, yeah, like, I'm not saying that because you're here, but I'm saying, like, it's legitimately ranked as a top party school in the country.
It was a good time.
So did you show up, and it was just, like, on?
Yeah, it showed. I mean, it was all
dorms or off campus.
Dorms.
So you
and it was all around.
Dorm.
It was all around football games. So for that, like pre-gaming and going out after was super fun.
Did you when you get there? Because I find this interesting. Because when I showed up to school, Sean Michael Murphy, I'll never forget it. I showed up in the summertime. He was my dorm mate or whatever, my roommate. And as soon as my uncle left, and then as soon as his dad left, he's like, "Hey, do you want to hit this gravity bong?" And I was like. Because I had just got there. I was like, what is happening?
What?
Because I didn't drink till late in my senior year of high school. But then I started to drink, like I started to party and stuff. But getting to college, I went there to play football and that was my focus.
Yeah.
And then to have my roommate be like, and I was like, no, I'm not really a weed guy. He's like, well, then let's go find someone to get us some rum. Because he was from the Keys. He was like he was a fucking pirate, man.
Hell yeah.
So to me, it like was immediate.
Yeah.
It was like right when I got there, it was like, oh, it's on. So for you, when you show up to Ohio State, I'm assuming it's the fall semester, like do you drop your bags in your dorm room and then you're like, let's go?
Yeah, I didn't at first. I was like, oh, we have this dorm activity. Like,
okay, so when you got that, that's
team
what I'm
building.
interested in.
And then I think like the second night, someone was like, we're going out. And I was like, okay.
Okay, cool.
And
so you were down.
yeah, and then we drank. I drank too much.
Tell that story. Those are the best stories.
I mean, I remember.
What do you mean? This is the second night you're there.
The second night I'm there.
When you say you drank, are you drinking like a beer? Are you doing shots?
Oh, we're doing. I mean, little fireball shots.
Yeah,
and then
now we're talking.
The campus
John.
beer was Natty Light.
Of course it was. It was at every campus.
And it was a good time. It was a good time.
So what do you remember about that second night? Were you like, I love college, this is the greatest thing ever? Or were you like sick? Like, did you end up throwing up?
No, I've barely thrown up to alcohol. It's usually like, it was like maybe 2 or 3 times I really have.
So you had some drinks, and then did you end up going out or did you stay home?
Oh, I went out. Yeah.
Did you? Where'd you go?
Went to different like frat parties.
Okay.
We were trying to, but as a freshman, you have to like get in, right? So I luckily was like friends with a bunch of girls on my floor. And since
how did that happen? You've only been there for 2 days.
Well, no, we were all on the same floor. We were doing the same little bonding activities. And so, we'd
going to those bonding activities actually paid off.
It's a good group. We had a good floor. Nice people.
We had a good, so when I moved there, it was building 60. Because I went in the summertime before football, and building 60. So the student apartments are on like the outskirts of campus. So it's still technically on campus, but they have kitchens and stuff, so you don't have to have the meal plan. So it's only normally reserved for like juniors and above. But because I was going to summer classes, I got to live there, and then I kind of got grandfathered into staying in the student apartments.
Awesome.
So as a freshman, I was in the student apartments, but I remember our building was building 60. So like you had your floor.
Yeah.
Well, in the student apartments, you had your building. Nice. And like building, like that's where I met some people I'm like still super close with to this day, was that first summer semester in building 60. And everyone from all the other buildings would come down to building 60 and we're like, get the fucking 39, get the fuck out of here. Get out of here.
You're not on fucking 60s level.
Yeah. So you guys, you have this super cool floor, a lot of attractive women on there, and you're like, hey, we're going to parties, let's go.
And it was a diverse group. It was an honors dorm that I somehow got roped into.
Hey.
So there were a bunch of like a buddy of mine who, does, I don't know, like molecular engineering for the government or something right now. Like he's he's a genius.
His name out, yeah.
Yeah. He was on the floor.
Okay.
But then also like,
and it's all freshmen, right?
It's all freshmen. God. So yeah, I remember going out, and I didn't even put this as one of the stories.
I know. I told you we'd find some.
We'd find one. I remember being in a frat house and finding someone from like my orientation group.
Yeah.
That's in the music program. I'm like, hey. And this is the first time I'm like drunk.
Yeah.
Ever.
Your first time ever.
And I remember. I think everyone on my floor kind of knew I was sort of new
to drinking.
Yeah, so they were like this guy's fun, but like let's make
keep
sure.
An eye.
Yeah, and I remember about to leave and go to someone else's place without them all.
Yeah,
and they were all like, "What do you like? No, you're staying with us." And I was like, "Okay," and then I just left. And then they were like calling me.
You walked on them.
I walked on them, and they were calling me, and I think I was at some girl's place.
Ooh.
And I remember leaving, and I don't remember
her place.
Yeah, like that night, and they found me. They're like, I'm like, I don't know, I'm at this dorm, and they're like they came, and they're like, we need to make sure he's okay.
Oh my god,
yeah,
that's
it was
so
really sweet.
That's incredibly wholesome.
And
normally stories end like I was naked and getting arrested by the cops out on the street.
I don't remember anything about the people I was like with, but I just remember the name because they all just made fun of me. Because after they were like walking me home, and I was just like, Tina, man. They all like, who's Tina? And the next day I was like, I don't know.
Oh wow.
I was like, I don't know, someone. I don't remember what she looked like.
God.
And nothing happened either.
You were just so drunk.
I was just like, oh, let's go. And then like I think I was in another dorm, and the person in the dorm was like, do you live here? I'm like, no. And then I just walked out, and then and then we all walked home.
Wow, that's crazy.
And I think that was the first time I like got drunk.
That's college.
I'm like, this is college.
I remember I think it was my sophomore year. It must have been because I think I was still playing football, but I remember I was at a house party, and I got hammered.
Oh yeah.
And there was this girl there that I had a crush on, and we were like talking the whole night.
Okay.
And then at one point, I remember, because my problem, like I don't make moves. Like you can ask Tracy, we didn't kiss until like the 5th date. Like I'm just not a move guy. because I don't know what it is. I was raised around women, or I'm just too respectful, or I'm just scared. I don't know what it is, but I just don't.
You're just waiting for like the right signs.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't see them for a while.
I'm obsessed with like romantic comedies and like romance. Like I'm a hopeless romantic, so I'm always like, oh no, it's got to be perfect.
Yeah. Like, oh, I'll know.
Yeah.
I'll know when it's right.
Yeah, exactly. See, you understand me.
And then it's like, oh, this maybe. I'm like, no, I'm not doing anything.
Not right now.
Not ready.
I remember one time I went on a walk around Central Park with a girl. This was after Savannah and I broke up, and it was like our second or third date, and she was like, "When do you like kiss?" And I was like,
happen?
"When it's time, like when I feel it, that's when." How about that? But this girl, she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna leave," and I was like, "Okay, let's get out of here." Because everyone on the team used to make fun of me that I would never make moves. And they'd be like, just fucking go for it, dude.
Especially on the football team.
Yeah. So she was like, oh, I'm going to leave. And I was like, all right, yeah, let's get out of here. And I remember getting in her car and she's like, yeah, so I'm going to go meet my boyfriend at my apartment. And I was like,
womp womp.
But because I'm very comfortable around women because I was raised around women.
Yeah.
So my response was, let's fucking go see him. Let's go.
Yeah, let's meet him.
Like, we'll keep this party going.
What's his name?
Yeah, I was like, let's keep this party going. And then we got to her place, and I remember sitting on the couch. And
Was it just the three of you?
It was just me and her because he was meeting her there.
Oh.
And I was like sitting on the couch. And so in hindsight, I'm like, maybe she called him and was like, maybe it was her ex or something. And she's like, hey, this fucking drunk football player is like, won't leave me alone. But in my head, I thought we were like,
let's have a hang.
Yeah, I thought we were hanging out. And I just remember waking up off their couch, and it was like 6 a.m. And I was on the couch, and I remember just waking up. I put flip-flops on that were hers because they weren't mine because they were way too small.
Yeah, I bet.
And I just walked out the front door, keys, wallet, cell phone, did that little thing, and then just started walking. And just walked and walked. And I was so hungover, and I found an ABC liquor store, but it was a Sunday. And so I was like, I guess I'll just wait here till they open, get a little hair of the dog, and get home.
Wow.
And then the cops showed up, and they were like, hey, where are you? So I say all that to say, like, yours was happy.
Oh,
like yours was like, hey, let's go get Jon. We'll make sure he's okay.
I think most of
mine was not that experience.
The craziest of my stories are probably happy or
that's awesome.
Just uneventful or just like, yeah, it was chill. Like nothing happened.
We hung out.
We got hammered and we just went to bed.
It's funny though, because sometimes people are like, oh, that doesn't make for good podcasting. In my experience, that makes for great podcasting because a lot of my stories and a lot of the guests I've had on, the stories end in like I said, like the cops showing up or me walking down I-95 in Florida from a strip club, drunk out of my mind, wearing no shoes.
Damn.
Just walking down the interstate. And the cops being like, hey, you can't walk out here, dude. This is the interstate. So it's fun to hear someone be like, no, it was actually a lot of fun. It was actually a pretty cool time.
Well, I feel like, performers, we kind of have these tendencies to get like obsessive about things. And I definitely have had it in me to like probably make a bunch of mistakes, but I always sort of just, I probably go months without drinking.
Yeah.
And then if, when I'm back into it, I kind of hit a spot where I'm like, oh, okay, I'm good for a while.
You got to stop for a little bit?
Yeah, I just stop myself.
Because, most of the time performers and artists are naturally inclined to addict behavior.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we're perfecting our craft.
Well, that's what we have to be because of what we do. So I wanted to ask you about senior crawl.
Oh, senior crawl was a great time.
So this is at Ohio State?
This is at Ohio State, the Ohio State University, TM. And I was student teaching.
Okay.
So I was teaching in a high school and a middle school in Columbus City schools. So I'm on a different schedule than the rest of the students.
Yeah.
So
because they're doing classes like Wednesday to Friday or
they're
Tuesday
randomly doing classes.
Yeah.
I'm Monday through Wednesday. I'm teaching at 7:30 a.m.
Yeah.
So I went in and shout out to Mark, my cooperating teacher.
Shout out Mark.
Shout out. He was like, he said, hey, like I heard a senior crawl today. And I was like, yeah, it's today. I think after.
What is senior crawl?
There's a bunch
Explain it for the listeners.
There is a strip called High Street. There's a big major street in Columbus, and all these bars are giving either free or very cheap drinks to seniors, and we all have these white shirts that say we're seniors.
Yeah.
And we just go crazy.
Okay. And then, this is on a Monday, I'm assuming?
This is on a Monday or something like that.
Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday.
Yeah.
And you have to work.
So I'm working. I was like, yeah, I'm going to join them at, 4. And he just went.
Oh my God, but that's the whole senior call. That's the whole day.
He let me go home. He immediately he was like, hey, just go home.
Yeah.
And then kind of
your co-teacher, was he he's a full-time?
He's a full-time,
so he's done it.
56-year-old teacher. Yeah.
And so God, this is insane to me because Columbus obviously is a college town. So he's like 50 years old. He's like, hey, John, isn't it senior crawl today?
Or maybe I said, oh, it's senior crawl. I'm going to go later. And you know, I'm not the person to be like, can I leave?
Yeah,
I would never.
I'm the same, yeah.
So he was like, all right, like let's do first period. Let's teach like wind ensemble or whatever.
Yeah.
And then go. And then he's like, and call the other cooperating teacher, Dustin. Let him know. And I let him know. I said, hey, I'm doing, Mark let me out early. I'm doing senior crawl. And he's like, and I was supposed to go to his school the next day. And he's like, don't come in tomorrow. I was like, you two are the best people ever.
That's awesome.
So that was, it started. So I'm calling my friend Jenny.
What time is it? This is going to be like 8
This is
in
like
the morning.
9.
Yeah, because you only did one period.
One period. And I'm like, I'm free. We're doing the whole thing. We're doing the whole thing. And the plan was from the beginning that night at like 9 or 10 p.m., there was this D'Angelo tribute show.
Okay.
And it was like farther down High Street. So the plan was to make our way down the whole day drinking and then go to this
12
show.
hours of drinking.
So that was the plan. I remember.
You keep saying plan, so I have a feeling something happened.
Yeah, so we go to my shout out to Jenny. We go to my friend's Jenny's house.
Shout out Jenny.
And we just pound like barefoot pink Moscato. Like, it's in the house.
Come on, John.
And that's how it started.
Yeah.
And we're like, all right, we're ready. Time to go to the first bar. It's a place called Cazuela's. We're all having beer. Cheers. Awesome to senior crawl. I nailed the top of her beer so it overflows.
Foam
So she has
stuff,
to. But instead of that, it just explodes and exploded on someone. And
like on someone that's not in the group.
Yeah. And we were just like, oh my God. So that's how we're starting.
That's not a good omen.
And it was, yeah. What? Okay. So we kept going, and I just have never been this drunk before in my entire life.
How long? So you get there around like 9:30 in the morning. How long does it take for you to be like, oh, fuck.
By
I'm wasted.
1 p.m. to 2 p.m.,
You're like, oh, shit.
Beyond wasted. Yeah. And we end up at like a pool hall a mile away from the
from High Street.
Yeah. We're like, I'm like, what are we doing here? And then,
how did you get there?
We walked.
Yeah, just kept
going. We had like pitchers of beer, and then we were like, okay, guys, we need to pace ourselves if we're gonna get to the D'Angelo show. So let's like
just hammered at 2:00. We gotta pace ourselves, you guys.
We gotta. So we're like, okay, let's go back to Jenny's apartment.
Yeah,
and let's all take a little rest. And then we'll be good. So they all go back, take their shoes off, same clothes, just chilling on the couch.
Yeah.
When I'm tired or drunk, like I just feel it very intensely.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I need to sleep. I go up into someone's bedroom that's not
at
in
Jenny's
there.
apartment.
At Jenny's, I think Jenny's room, and I just take like shoes and socks, take like my pants off, and get in the bed, and I sleep in the bed. And they're all like,
"What is wrong with you?"
They're like, "Oh, he's taking a nap." Like we're gonna chill for 2 hours. You're taking a nap. You're taking a nap.
You're taking a bed.
I'm taking a bed.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll be fine after. So hours later, I just hear like.
Was it 2 hours later? Did they wake you up?
It was probably more than that.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And I just hear like a warm voice being like, John, you should really, we're going to start to wake up. And I was like, fuck no, I'm not going. She's like, we have to go to D'Angelo show. And I was like, fuck D'Angelo. And they're like, and I'm like, I no, I'm sorry.
Who's D'Angelo?
Oh, he's like one of the best like R&B, soul artists of all
that's
time.
What I thought.
Yeah. Oh, great artist. Anyways, and a bunch of our friends were playing in that show.
Yeah.
So we're like, it's going to be great.
So what happened?
So she goes out. They're all chilling, passing a joint on the stoop.
Yeah.
And she goes out and she's like, guys, John's not doing well right now. We need to like really ease him into
getting up.
And I go out and they're all like, hey, buddy, we're going to
So you got up.
I got up and I'm like, guys, I'm going home. And they're like, no, like, don't go home. Senior crawl, man. Like, D'Angelo. We got to go to the D'Angelo show. And I was like, guys, I feel like shit. I'm not doing it. And one of the guys I remember was like, and I barely smoked weed.
Yeah. And I knew, we all saw where this was going, John.
And he was like, just smoke this joint. Just take one hit. And just chill, and then you can leave. You can leave if you want to.
But you're not going to want to.
But you just hit this joint. So I hit it, and I'm just silent for, like, my head's down. I'm silent for, like, 5 minutes. I hear all this talking, and then my head perks up, and I go, let's roll. And so we get Raisin Canes.
Yeah.
I
know Raisin Canes.
Oh, we went to, like, 3 bars before the show.
So you were back.
We were back.
You were back.
I was
They
back.
Were already
they
there.
were already there.
You're back.
And then we went to the show. I remember dancing like a complete idiot. And then we went to bars after.
God, what a little bit of weed can do.
And it was the most I've ever drank. And I think... my cooperating teacher called me the next day because he knew I wasn't coming in.
Yeah, because he told
called
you
me
not
at
to,
like
yeah.
5 or something. He's like, "How you doing?" And I was just like, and he's like,
so by Wednesday, are you like? Because back then we could recover a lot faster.
No,
so
I
like
was
you're out Tuesday. Wednesday, are you like still hurting?
yeah. Like the kids. I mean, they don't know things for sure, but they have a sense of things.
Yeah.
They're like, "Why are you mean today, Mr. Weisbrot?" And I'm like, "Shut up.
Don't fucking worry about why
Play your scales."
I wanted to ask you about the Jazz Dirty Hang.
Oh yeah.
What does that mean?
We were in this jazz ensemble. We were pretty cool, and
this is back in college, right?
Yeah, we'd play these concerts, and after every concert, we'd have a party.
Yeah.
And sometimes it was big, sometimes it was chill. So
Where's the party at? Is it at the place where you played, or is it
one
at...
person's apartment?
Okay.
So usually we'd have
you leave the venue and all go back to a place.
we leave the venue. If anyone has family there, we go and we get like dinner with our parents.
Okay.
And then we all meet at the Dirty
Okay, so
Hang.
this is the ensemble. So you're not doing gigs like this isn't like Jon and The Projectors kind of gigs. This
this is like
through school.
the Ohio State Jazz
Yeah.
Ensemble.
Yeah.
And
University of TM.
TM. And so yeah, I mean, sometimes they didn't happen, but I remember this one in particular. There was one person in the band that was an ex of mine.
Yeah.
And it didn't end well. You know, it was a bad one. And
Artists.
people didn't really, people weren't that hot on her because they heard about what happened.
Oh, was this the one you wrote the cheating songs about?
No.
Okay.
Funny enough, I've made great decisions. And I remember them saying like, maybe let's not invite her. Like let's like
to the party?
Yeah, like let's just not
But she knows there's a party after everything.
not for sure. But yeah, like let's not make it obvious.
Yeah.
And I think they were just being my buddies too,
Yeah.
because it was like a hard.
Got your
It
back,
was a
dog?
bad one.
Yeah.
And so
Fuck her.
we're at these. we're at one of my dude's apartments, and we're there, we're drinking, we're having a good time, and then in the back everyone's like smoking a ton of weed.
Yeah.
Not me, and at the time. And she shows up and
What?
she's hammered. And then she's trying to
I just want to suck
and then she starts flirting with like all these other dudes.
in front of you.
Yeah.
On purpose.
I don't know. Well,
It was on purpose.
who knows?
Yeah, I do. I'm telling you. It was on purpose.
I'll give the benefit of the doubt. But I
You're such a
remember
sweetheart.
one of the guys just being like, "Yo, this girl's too drunk. And he was kind of like he was a year
What
old.
year are you at this point?
I'm either a sophomore or a junior.
Okay.
And he was kind of like the dad of the group. And
Yeah.
he was like, I'll just walk her home. And I don't know if they got all the way there or something, but apparently outside she called her parents in New Jersey.
What?
And she was like, I don't know, I'm drunk. And then the guy was like, hey, my name's this. We're just making sure she gets home safe. We were just drinking after Jazz Ensemble concert. Like, if you want FaceTime, if you want to, like, let's just, we're just making sure everyone gets home safe. Well, her parents called the cops from New Jersey. And we're all mostly 19, 20-year-olds.
Yeah.
So we get a knock
Underage,
a knock on the door, and there's like a crap ton of weed in the back.
Yeah, which is super illegal
Which is
in Ohio.
super illegal in Ohio.
Still to this day, it's super illegal.
To this
in Ohio.
day.
I have a friend who's going through that right now.
And someone's like, it's the cops. And we're like, what? Like, there's only like 20 people here.
Yeah.
It's not crazy. And we're like, oh my God. So we all hide in the closet.
What?
There's 2 closets in the back room. Almost everyone hides in the closet except for one of my friends, like this like skinny, scrawny white guy, tall white guy. But then the dad of the group is like, I'll handle this. And he was.
So he walked the other girl home, came back.
And then the cops came.
Yeah.
And he was there and he's like, let me take care of it. So he was like, what can I do? How can I help you, officer? No, you can't come in, doing all that.
Yeah.
And he was, he's a black guy. And he was like, why are you harassing? Like he started giving this like impassionate speech. And that about like, why are you doing this? We're not disturbing anybody. We're fine.
Yeah.
And we're all just fucking hiding in these closets.
So what happened with the cops?
So he talked him out.
What?
He left.
Oh my gosh, that's insane. That's awesome.
We all got out of the closet, and my friend's still there with a joint in his hand. And we go, dude, why? And the door was open. Like the cop probably
Yeah.
could have seen him just like, oh, hey, man.
Yeah.
And we're like, what would you, what would you do if the cop came in? And I always, my friend reminded me, but it was like almost from a movie. He's like, man, I'd ask him if he wanted to hit. We're like, you're a fucking idiot.
Yeah, that's actually because I have a friend of mine who bought weed legally in Indiana, got pulled over in Ohio, and is now going through a hell of a fucking situation because it's illegal in Ohio.
Super illegal.
So even though he bought it in a state where it's legal, at a dispensary, fully legal, he is now facing like charges and like going through all this shit because he got pulled over in Ohio. And it's like, so your friend to be like, oh, whatever, man. Like, we're just smoking. I wanted to ask you, we have time for one more story. I wanted to ask you about the RNC. Now, this is a gig story.
Yeah.
But you were like, you have to ask me about the RNC.
Yeah, so...
That's the Republican National
Convention.
The greatest national convention.
It's a great place.
It's a great place. The best place, some would say.
They love when the jazz combo plays.
Jazz combo, the greatest jazz. So what happened?
This is the professor that wrote the jazz show.
for Ohio
and
State.
he's probably the most progressive old man I've ever met. He wrote the music for the when the Martin Luther King monument got unveiled in D.C. He wrote the music for that entire event. Wow. And they fucking called him.
The RNC called him.
The RNC called him like, hey, we want a jazz combo. And he was like,
no.
Yeah?
Oh, really?
And he's like, okay. And then he was, a lot of times if they call the head of the program, they'll get the professors to do it. And he's like, let's get the fucking students to do it.
So he's the head of the program?
He's the head of the program at the time. He retired my second year.
Yeah, because then you ended up doing the thing for...
Yeah.
So they call him because he's the head of the program at the time.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, the RNC wants how many people? Is it a trio?
I think quintet, 5.
Okay. So they go, we want 5 people to play jazz combo.
Yeah.
And then instead of him being like, I'll get the professors to do it, he's like, actually, fuck them. We'll get the students
to do it.
So how did you get picked? You're just that
a guy
good.
couldn't.
You're
I would not at the time. I was 18. It was my first year. It was my first gig in Ohio.
Yeah.
And I guess there was a trumpet player that was pretty good, and he couldn't do it. And they're like, let's get that freshman to do it with you. He knows a bunch of tunes.
And what are you playing?
I'm playing saxophone. We're playing like jazz standards. Tenor.
Better than alto.
Yeah. My tenor's broken right now, but it's fine.
So wait, so what are you doing? So you guys...
So we're at
How does this happen? Are you like excited? Like what's going on?
I'm excited. This is my first gig. And
what year is this?
This is 2014.
So you get to go see the man?
No, it was before him.
Oh, okay. When was he? 16?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or 18.
18?
I don't know.
When was the last election?
I don't know. 2020 was the last election.
2020, yeah. So 2016 is when.
So this was 14.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is like a prime, midterm.
Yeah, midtermy
thing.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, it's at a hotel. Oh my God. I'm playing with the best kids in school. Awesome. Like the weirdest, whitest, it's all the senator. Yeah.
It's the Republican National Convention.
And then now, and I wasn't very politically aware, but kind of remembering the faces now, I was like, I think that was like Ron Paul. I think that was Mitch McConnell. Like, I was like, what the fuck? And
were you crushing? Were you just like...
No one gave a shit. I mean, it's like, this is very like...
Oh, trust me, I know. The listeners know. I just did that show in Philly to 150 people that weren't even listening.
It was...
I don't play... And I'm saying jokes into a microphone and no one's listening.
Yeah, well, that one, they should listen. It's there for... This is like, we're kind of background music, but... Yeah, it just... Nobody cared. I remember going to the bathroom and hearing these guys like talk while like... going. Yeah. And they were saying, yeah, there's like this pipeline and we're trying to get them the fuck out. Like and then like weeks later, it's that literally, so it was just so fucking bizarre. And
it's so weird. It's a weird shadow government.
But then I was just like, gig, my first one. Yeah, it was.
Well, it's interesting too because when you're younger, and I mean, you know this from all the performances you do. Sometimes you'll just take gigs because you're like, they're gigs. We're supposed to do them.
It pays.
And then you show up and you're like, the fuck am I doing here, man?
I mean, one of them on the list is that I had to sneak into a corporate gig because they didn't pay insurance on the equipment and the instruments. So some guy met us outside of whatever building it was. It's like a giant company, like huge, and they were like, hey, we need to wait till the guards change for you to come in because they already saw you and then they're not allowed to have a band. I'm like, what is this, fucking Mission Impossible?
That's hilarious.
Yeah. And it's
were you able to get in?
Yeah, like hours late.
God.
And they were like, "Can you start right now?" And I was like, "They have to set up. I can play solo saxophone."
You want to hear some sax?
And they were like,
you wanna hear
"Yeah,
some tenor sax."
And I'm like, "This is kind of lame, but okay." And you know what? It was fine gig. It paid, but like, what?
God, that's
people just
insane.
don't think about stuff.
Hell no. Some people are. I say it all the time. It's a line from Men in Black. A person is smart. People are dumb, panicky, dangerous animals.
Oh, the worst.
Plug everything one more time.
Jon the Projectors, JONANDTHE Projectors. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok and streaming platforms soon at Jon Weisbrot Music.
Do you have any albums out?
No, I really should.
You got some coming?
Yeah, I have some singles that are close, and then we're working on a bunch right now.
Yeah, because I have Joe Dorville, friend of the show, been on a bunch. He just releases his own albums. Like he does
that's
it,
cool.
Yeah,
I should do that.
He does it through like different platforms, but like it's like how people do a podcast. You go to Buzzsprout, you put in your podcast stuff, and then it just uploads it to all the podcasting things. You can do that with music.
Yeah, DistroKid.
Yeah, that's what he used.
DistroKid's the one. It's a good one. It's a good one.
Thank you, everybody, so much for listening. At Brennan T. Comedy on all social media. BrennanTComedy.com. Got some dates coming up at Broadway Comedy Club and Greenwich Village Comedy Club here in New York City. So check out the website.
Yes.
And we'll talk to y'all next week.
Thank you.
Boom, baby.